What happens when a championship window starts closing and tough decisions loom on the horizon? The Golden State Warriors find themselves at crossroads with Jonathan Kuminga, and the Utah Jazz might just hold the key to shaking up both franchises in ways nobody saw coming. Warriors Nation, we need to talk about the elephant in the room. While everyone's been focused on the latest roster moves and training camp preparations, there's a brewing storm that could fundamentally change how we view this team's future. Jonathan Kuminga, the 21-year-old forward who's been tantalizing us with flashes of brilliance, remains in contractual limbo with our Warriors. And now, the Utah Jazz are lurking in the shadows, potentially ready to make a move that could send shockwaves through the Bay Area. Let's break down what's really happening here. Kuminga has been one of the most coveted names in the trade market this offseason, and for good reason. This young man averaged over 15 points per game in just 24 minutes of action over the past 2 seasons. Think about that for a moment. He's producing at an elite level while playing limited minutes. That's the kind of efficiency that makes general managers lose sleep at night, wondering what could be if given more opportunities. But here's where things get complicated. The Warriors have been steadfast in their refusal to trade their young forward, and honestly, who can blame them? When you have a 21-year-old who's already showing all-star potential alongside the greatest shooter in NBA history, you don't just give that away. However, contract negotiations have been anything but smooth sailing. Kuminga has the option to sign his qualifying offer worth $6 million. But that decision seems to be on hold while both sides figure out their next moves. The restricted free agency status adds another layer of complexity to this entire situation. Any team can make Kuminga an offer, but the Warriors have the right to match it. It's a chess game where Golden State currently holds most of the pieces. But that doesn't mean they're invincible. If a team comes in with an offer significantly above market value, suddenly the Warriors have to decide just how much they're willing to invest in a player who hasn't quite reached his ceiling yet. Enter the Utah Jazz, a franchise that's been quietly stockpiling assets like they're preparing for the basketball apocalypse. These guys have 8 first-round picks over the next 4 drafts. 8! That's not just flexibility. That's the kind of ammunition that can completely reshape a franchise overnight. They're in a unique position where they can afford to overpay for talent because they have the assets to burn. So what would this hypothetical blockbuster look like? The Jazz would send Georges Niang and 2 first-round picks to the Warriors in exchange for Kuminga via sign-and trade. Now, before you start throwing things at your screen, hear me out on why this might actually make sense for both sides. Georges Niang might not be the flashiest name in basketball, but this man knows how to contribute. He's been shooting consistently above 55% on 2-point attempts and regularly hits over 40% from 3-point range. That's exactly the kind of reliable production that fits seamlessly into the Warriors system. When you're built around Steph Curry's gravity and Draymond Green's playmaking, having a player who can knock down open shots with consistency is invaluable. For the Jazz, this move represents something much bigger than just acquiring one player. They're looking at their current roster construction with Lauri Markkanen, Walker Kessler, and Jusuf Nurkic dominating the paint. And they're envisioning a fast-paced, high-scoring attack that could be incredibly fun to watch. Adding Kuminga to that mix gives them a versatile forward who can run the floor, finish in transition, and potentially develop into a cornerstone piece. But let's address the elephant in the room. Is this actually good for the Warriors? On paper, trading away a 21-year-old with all-star potential for a role player and draft picks seems counterintuitive for a team still in championship contention. However, there's a cold reality that the Warriors front office has to confront. Their championship window with this core isn't infinite. Steph Curry is 36 years old and showing no signs of decline, but Father Time remains undefeated. Draymond Green, while still effective, has accumulated a lot of mileage on those legs. The Warriors are in a position where they need to maximize every season they've left with this legendary core, and sometimes that means making moves that prioritize immediate impact over long-term potential. Those 2 first-round picks from Utah could be incredibly valuable down the line. In a league where draft capital is currency, having additional picks gives the Warriors flexibility to make moves they otherwise couldn't consider. Whether it's packaging those picks for an established star or using them to draft young talent that can contribute immediately, Options are always valuable. The fit with Niang is particularly intriguing when you consider the Warriors' style of play. This team thrives when they have shooters who can space the floor and make quick decisions. Niang has proven he can do exactly that throughout his career. He's not going to be the primary option on offense, but he doesn't need to be. What he brings is reliability, basketball IQ, and the kind of veteran presence that championship teams need. From Utah's perspective, this trade represents a bet on upside that could pay massive dividends. Kuminga, in a Jazz uniform, with more minutes and more responsibility, could blossom into the kind of player that transforms a franchise. He's already shown flashes of brilliance in limited opportunities. Imagine what he could do with 35 minutes per game and the green light to be aggressive. The timing of this potential move is also worth considering. The Warriors are coming off a season where they struggle with consistency, particularly from their bench unit. Adding a veteran like Niang who knows his role and can contribute immediately might be exactly what they need to maintain their championship aspirations, while Curry is still playing at an elite level. There's also the financial aspect to consider. Kuminga's next contract, whether it's with the Warriors or another team, is likely to be substantial. If the Warriors aren't completely sold on offering him max money, this trade gives them a chance to get value before potentially losing him for nothing down the line. But perhaps the most compelling argument for this trade is what it represents for both organizations' futures. The Warriors get to maintain their championship window while adding assets for the future. The Jazz get a potential cornerstone player who could be the face of their franchise for the next decade. It's the kind of win-win scenario that doesn't come around very often in professional sports. Of course, there are risks involved for both sides. The Warriors will be gambling that Niang's production and the draft picks will provide more value than Kuminga's potential breakout. The Jazz will be betting significant assets on a player who hasn't quite put it all together yet. But sometimes in the NBA, the biggest risks lead to the biggest rewards. As we move forward into the season, keep an eye on how this situation develops. Contract negotiations in the NBA are rarely straightforward, and with a player Kuminga's potential involved, there are sure to be more twists and turns ahead. Whether he stays in Golden State or ends up in Salt Lake City, one thing is certain. His next move will have major implications for both franchises. What do you think, Warriors fans? Would you be willing to trade Kuminga's potential for immediate help and future assets? Drop your thoughts in the comment below and let's get this discussion going. And if you want to stay up to date with all the latest Warriors news and analysis, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content. The offseason is far from over, and we'll be here breaking down every move that could impact our championship hopes.